Welcome to The Lost Signals discusses film and TV. Using the revolutionary Manzur-Ramosi-Thurlow scale,
or MOTS,
we scrupulously review these art forms with an emphasis on narrative structure. Join us for another entertaining episode.
Hello and welcome back to The Lost Signals Reviews, Television and Film. Today we are doing Midsommar during Midsommar 2, which is very nice. I'm Jonathan Ian Manser, here with Chris Morgan.
Skull.
And Scott Thurlow.
Burn me in a bear suit.
All right, I'm going to give the funny log line for this. The cults are very nice when you're living in a Swedish paradise.
Indeed they are.
All right, Chris, would you like to go on with the plot?
Yes. Our plot's about a woman named Danny who has a sister who kills herself and her parents and ends up going on a, let's put it, an intellectual retreat.
Ostensibly.
She goes with her douchebag boyfriend and his friends who are far more interesting on a trip to Sweden on an anthropological thing because everybody's a doctoral candidate or is working on their thesis or whatever. And they get there, and, they're in the middle of a summer festival, and this specific festival happens every 90 years. I mean, apparently it is applied that they have some kind of a festival every year, but specifically this festival every 90 years. Kind of, I don't want to quite say it's a cult, but,
It's a cult.
Cult-esque shenanigans
It's a commune.
ensue, and, basically, Josh, Danny's boyfriend, offers his seed up, not really intentionally, and he gets burned up with everybody else, and Danny ends up being a member of the commune.
She finds a new family.
Christian's the boyfriend, isn't it?
Christian's the boyfriend, yes.
Josh.
Oh, sorry. Did I say Josh?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Christian's the boyfriend, who's a douche, and wait, is that wrong for me to say? Can I?
No,
I just want to make sure I'm not.
He's douchey.
Say douche if
he's
you
an
want.
asshole. All right. But he sacrificed for a seed, and then he sacrificed because Danny gets a choice of who she gets to sacrifice because she's named Midsummer Queen. May Queen. I'm being kind of vague because I know we're going to talk about the plot in greater detail, so I don't really feel like retreading ground. And she finds a new family with this commune.
I love this film, and I'm going to start there because I was weirdly rooting for her to join the cult. And I know I probably shouldn't have, but I'm like, yeah. I didn't particularly like Danny at the beginning. I mean, I didn't dislike her,
She was
but
okay.
she didn't have her shit together. And granted, she did go through tragedies in her life, as you alluded to, but she gets power, but through the cult. It's a very weird mixture of feelings I have for it because I'm like, yeah, burn him alive. Burn him. Yeah, you go, girl. Burn him alive. Yeah, join that cult. Get that smile on your face. And, but I really enjoyed the entire journey. And it's a long journey. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes or something like that.
It's almost 2:30.
Yeah.
It's a slow burn for sure.
But it kept me enthralled the entire time. A lot because of the style, necessarily over the narrative. But the narrative was strong, and I feel that they handled, being in grad school myself, they handled grad students and their personalities incredibly accurately.
Grad student douchery, you will say.
And having been parts of cults in my time, they handled the cult aspect really accurately too.
Well, I mean, and the reason I'm coming really down hard on Christian is because you've got Josh, who's played by William Jackson Harper, who's Chidi from The Good Place, which is kind of relevant to this. And he's kind of like, let's say, a true believer. He's an anthropologist. Am I saying this right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. And this is his passion. And Christian tries to go in and kind of co-opt, like, hi, I'm going to do my doctoral thesis on this too. Like he is kind of a dick. Like overall, he's a dick.
As I said, they did graduate school students very well.
But the thing is, and it's like, yeah, you've got Mark, who is kind of the comic relief, but he was never overdone. Let's put it that way. He was just somebody who's, yeah, I'm doing this, and he's interested, but there's a disconnect. Whereas like Josh comes in and he is really into the whole thing, and I have no idea why Christian's there, and Danny's there because she needs to get away. And to be honest with you, the people who genuinely seem to care about her are Josh and Pele. They actually are the ones that invite her, and Christian's kind of like, well, if you want to come.
I don't know if Josh he gave her sleeping pills.
No, but
I never thought that he really like when she's talking to Pele, he is uncomfortable in the conversation and leaves.
Yeah.
But you're right.
But no,
Josh is there because what?
No, I was gonna say because Christian kind of gives her a half-assed, yeah, if you want to come, and then sees that she wants to be invited. And basically, he may or may not want her there, but he needs to. He's the one who actually offers the hand, and she's the one who asks him if she could have a sleeping pill. He was more of a sympathetic character.
Oh,
yeah,
certainly.
sure.
I mean, I think genuinely he's a good person.
Yeah. He's.
Except for not doing what he was going in and taking pictures of things.
He just
that
obeyed the rules
do.
of the cult,
Yeah.
and I mean, there were going to be consequences to that.
But he had no
And
choice.
he studies this for a living. You don't desecrate the altar of the tribe you're
They specifically
investigating.
said, "Do not take pictures of our sacred script," and then he's not going to do it. So I mean, that's on him,
Yeah, that is totally on him.
Mark was there not just be comic relief for the film, which it was, but he's there to do drugs and get laid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And pisses on the ancestral tree, and gets his comeuppance for that as well.
Exactly.
Which is kind of vaguely cliche, but done very well. It's dead already. That's where that's
Sure.
a sacred tree of our dead. But the tree's dead. It's just like
I guess we'll say in this case, the cult was not they were quote unquote justified because the two people were breaking their rules that they specifically said don't do this.
Yeah.
So anyway, but yeah, going about the plot in general. I thought you were going to say.
Generally, I just thought that the characters all had good motivation to them. I'm actually oddly sympathetic with, let's not call them the commune and their rituals, because it is steeped in tradition. It's at times their oracles are the inbred, mentally, I guess, ill of thing, but that is really not even a plot point.
yeah, but they even plan on who's going to be the inbred.
Yeah,
They did say that.
But
yeah.
it does seem like it's a very structured society that they have there that is different than us. I've seen this type of movie before, where basically a bunch of scientists go to a remote location with a different tribe, and then everything goes bad. Except this one is just a bunch of Swedish people in a brightly lit area, and so it's a narrative that's been done before, but I think very well handled, specifically because of the attention to detail that director
Ari Aster, I believe.
Aster, yes, was phenomenal. Puts into you see not wood murals and the
Frescoes
paintings on
and stuff.
Yeah,
on
basically
that tell you what's going to happen over the course of the plot, but just how it all lines up perfectly. I might have to give it a 3 just by how detail oriented it was, and even though it's not necessarily the most original plot line.
Well, it certainly has a unique spin on it. I'll agree with that. So this one I was wavering on. It's either a pretty strong 2 or a solid 3 for me. I will say, yes, it's a long movie, and Ari Aster, his previous one was Hereditary, which we also reviewed. It also had the same sort of sensation to it. So, my only nitpick is that it's sometimes slowed down, but not to a halt. Not that it broke me out of it, but I just felt it could have been a little bit faster in a sense. But having said all that, and what you guys said, I definitely agree. It was a strong narrative. The characters made sense. The motivations all aligned, and everything they did also made sense to who they were set up as, and then the consequences from what they chose to do. And at the end, it all wrapped up very nicely for sure. So, either a very strong 2 or 3. I'm still kind of wavering. So if you have any final things,
I'm looking forward to the 3-hour cut of this, actually.
Yeah,
But
I'm not sure if I am, but I did enjoy the hell out of this version, if you will, the theatrical version.
I want to find out if the 3 hours is going to be on home video or if it's going to be on if they're going to actually put it out in theater.
Well, I'd see it in theaters.
Oh, that's what I'm saying is I hope they do, because the only thing that I was wavering on is because I was always saying it reminds me of The Wicker Man, and it basically had almost the same ending as The Wicker Man, and that was the only thing I was kind of like, I wish they.
Well, I said this is a classic, well, not a classic tale in the sense that it's
a template.
It's one that's been told a number of times. I think this was a fresh take on that, and often those types of movies are very, very bogged down by like exposition and stuff, and they handled it that they made the rituals understandable but mysterious at the same sense.
That's fair point.
And there's this more style, but there's a trippy sense to the whole thing because they're taking drugs throughout the entire thing. So you're seeing like you kind of get into that haze as well throughout the film.
Yeah, that's fair. And like you said, you mentioned attention to detail was very strong. I totally agree with that. It was like you said, there were shots, or like even in the background when they go to like the barn, it's all like painted up and showing you the ritual and like what's going to happen later on. So it's not like it comes as a surprise, but it shouldn't, because the film like gives you all the clues.
I'm going to make this comparison here. That I was writing actually quite a bit of 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yes, actually, I was.
You got it up there. Yeah.
Musically, and oftentimes that slow pace to it. But I don't know what I rated there, but I felt that this was quicker than that, but it did have that slow, methodical storytelling dynamic.
For sure.
Okay, two things. Number one, the beginning, the way they the establishing shots, because it starts off in winter back in America.
Yeah.
And the only thing I wished at that time was that I could pause, because he would do these really long stills, just establishing shots. The camera wouldn't move. It would just sit there.
Mm-hmm.
And even when it was a dark winter forest scene, I just want, and when you're talking about 2001, because 2001's a lot of that, where I just want to sit there and stare at it, like the
Sure.
Let's call it, for the sacrificial smokehouse, the yellow house against the mountains, was just such a stunning imagery.
I need a sacrificial smokehouse.
This film is inspiring many ideas.
But what's now changed my score is because I realized, well, yeah, they did have the fire thing, but fire is not an atypical thing to have in rituals. Mm-hmm. It is partially the renewal. Yeah, so this is getting a solid 3 from me.
It's still tough for me, man. Like one of you said, I'm going to start stealing this. I think one of you guys said on Spider-Man, if you give it like a 2.7, he would do that. So like that's kind of how I feel with this one. It's super fucking strong. All right, you know what? I'll give it a 3, because I do think the narrative was perfectly fine, and whatever nitpicks I have are nitpicks. Like it's a tautology, so I may end up taking a point or two away elsewhere, or I may end up giving it a 10, and if indeed that happens, we'll discuss whether or not I think it's a 10, but I will give it a 3 for plot at this point.
Okay, that's 3s all around, and Scott, onto themes with you.
Yeah, man, so this one, as Chris mentioned, just precast, and we were discussing a bit, so similar to Hereditary, it's steeped in grief, right? It opens with a tragedy, essentially, with one character, and then Danny's like dealing with the aftermath of that, and then dealing with her relationship with Christian and his friends and so forth. But it's also, I would say, this is an obvious one, even though it's very well handled, like finding a family, finding a home, which he indeed does with the Midsommar commune cult. And I think that was really well handled. It wasn't like, it was subtle enough, but also like not too subtle, if that makes sense. It wasn't in your face at all. So I give a lot of credit on that front. It didn't like pound it, constantly like reinforce it, but it did build itself up to that. Like you had mentioned, I'm going to steal this detail from you. Like about midway through the movie, she's getting like invited to work with the women in the commune, and like they put an apron around her, so she's slowly being like more and more immersed into their activities.
To that point, throughout it, you're seeing everyone's in white who's part of the commune, and all the Americans
just wearing their regular shit.
Yeah. And then the apron's the first sign of her being draped in the white.
Exactly.
And it's again, attention to details and little.
Yeah.
And here's an ephemeral little thing was when she's baking the pies for dinner or lunch, whatever, the way she just like takes them out and like kind of kicks the door shut. And it's like it's a minor thing, but it just shows an acclamation there.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm sitting here going, wow, they really showed her how to use a wood burning stove, and how do you cook this without a timer? Like those were things that went through my head. But again, these are little bits of detail that I admired so much about the film that actually kind of went into that she's fitting in more and more.
Yeah, it adds a lot for sure. And it's like, I think that maybe style, but even so, when she's they're doing the maypole dance essentially, and like she's being invited to do that, and she ends up obviously becoming May Queen, and therefore like that sort of pretty much cements like her place until the very end. It's like, yeah, all that stuff was very well handled, I thought, via her character and via her relationship and interactions with all the people from the commune. So I think that's a very strong theme and very well handled. I'll open up to you guys if there's
the final shot of her smiling, though, was
The perfect cap off.
final,
Yeah.
no, but her acceptance of her new
Yes.
family,
Yeah.
and it was so powerful. I love that entire thing. But I want to bring up that the director himself said that this is about a breakup and getting over a breakup in a way, and I definitely see that theme right through. Christian, at the beginning of the film, it does seem that Danny, I don't want to say like. She has a lot of stresses on her life, and they're making an interesting look at a couple.
They don't paint her in a great light at the opening, like say half hour or so.
But it shows like an actual like you see the Christian's friends are making good points about the relationship, and you're kind of sympathetic to both of them until you learn that how Christian kind of screws over Josh in a selfish way, and also how he ends up sleeping with the woman though he was under a drug spell, but I think he had the production to do it anyway. Josh at one point, I believe it's Josh, who goes, "You guys are my family," and he is betrayed by that family multiple levels throughout the thing. So the idea of like make your family, find the family that accepts you for who you are, and I love the fact that the commune really had to think about sharing the grief with you, and that's what she was searching for. Her one female friend that she had, you only knew from her talking on the phone. Which she didn't even have. She didn't have the close companionship like Christian had with his friends.
But that was awesome. I yes, like because when she would start screaming, they'd all start screaming, and usually in these things, it's in mockery. This was in sympathy.
Yes.
Yeah, it was camaraderie.
I was just, I'm like sitting here. The more we're talking about this, I'm like, shit. It's like
On his own mind.
There's so many there's so many little details, as I said before,
I'm agree.
that there's things you don't think about.
Here's one of my favorite details, if you mind me jumping in here.
No.
Is that at the beginning of the film, you see Danny by herself constantly. There are a lot of close-up shots of her. And you see Christian amongst all his friends. And at the end of the film, Christian's alone in the field while Danny is surrounded by her new family. And that switch that happens there. I mean, the man is naked and alone, wandering in this strange place because he can't handle what Danny embraces that her new family. And again, I was rooting for her to join a cult. It's weird, but I felt
it makes
that
sense within the framework.
it's weird. It was an earned emotion that I'm now. I'm rooting for the two people I shouldn't be rooting for, or from the start of the film.
No, I hear the. I think.
No, but
good.
But it does go back to that sense of family because right away, I mean, like even the Pele who brings them there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like. Even though he may be bringing them there for a sacrifice or whatever, he figures that he thinks it's an honor for them to be here. He genuinely cares about people regardless of, like, there's nothing nefarious about this. These people aren't, like, mustache twirlers.
No, they're true believers.
They're true believers, yeah. But, I mean, they are that kind of, but they're not over the top, let's say.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring up one last thing. We don't have to discuss it much if you guys don't want to, but killing our elderly.
I was waiting for you to drop that in here.
The Midsommar retirement plan, I think, has some merit behind it.
Could be feasible.
But there's one line where they're talking about, like, they basically have, when they turn 72, the group has to commit suicide. Or those over that has to commit suicide. And they go, well, we lock our elderly in nursing homes. Yeah. Like, they probably would think that is a terrible fate, which through my personal experience with family members, I think is a terrible fate.
Yeah.
So Midsommar retirement plan, I am 100% for that.
Yeah.
Star Trek has brought this up.
What hasn't Star Trek brought up?
And what haven't you brought up Star Trek? But
thanks, Mike from Red Letter Media.
But regardless, I think everything we just said is very strong evidence to give it a pretty damn strong one on the thematic front.
I agree.
Sorry, one last thing. It's also, I always love the discussing rituals and also societies that have different moral values than ours, and having that comparison is always interesting to me.
Yeah, for sure, and that was well portrayed as well.
I had the fate of Josh, though I wouldn't have touched the books.
All right.
Okay, I'm on to antagonist. So this is interesting to me because normally I would say that the Swedish commune would be the antagonists here, but they're certainly the antagonists too. A lot of the characters who aren't the main protagonist of this. And I think that in a lot of ways, Christian is the antagonist of this film.
He certainly becomes that if he wasn't like.
No, he
he's
really
always.
is.
I don't think he
Yeah.
starts out that way, but I think when they get to Sweden, it quickly becomes like that. He fills that role.
I know his girlfriend's going through this great stress, and in that room, aside from Mark, who's probably just the superficial guy, the person who should be the most protective and the most, he's just like, oh, I wasn't going to tell you I was going away for 6 weeks. Like
Sure.
he is just the most. But
He also forgets her birthday.
He forgets her birthday. But it's not in an over to the top way. He just doesn't think about anybody but himself.
Yeah, she cares about him a lot more than he cares about her. And just based on his actions of this film, he would have cheated on her if they had never gone to Sweden. It would have
Unless
been
he hasn't already.
Like regardless.
Yeah, I mean, like that he could have before that, but I feel like in all of his caring moments, it was him going through the motions of what he thought a relationship should be versus
That's a good
actually
point, yeah.
wanting to care
versus
for,
actually
protect her.
being
Yeah.
invested in their relationship.
But
Sure.
as you said, or one of you said before, like his friends are right when they're having dinner. It's just like, dude, break up with her.
Mhm.
I mean, because they weren't being mean, but obviously he wasn't into her, and obviously he's just, he's annoying everybody because it's like, dude, just if you're not happy, you're not making her happy, just end it.
No, that's all fair.
He's a selfish prick.
And it always ends poorly that way, if you don't end it, even if you're not stuffed into a barrel and burned alive.
Yeah.
Um,
Regardless of cults. But no, I think that's a good angle.
Yeah, whoever knew he was a furry.
a furry on fire, and even, but yeah. No, like that's a good point. Like, of course, like traditionally in a movie like this, take it easy there.
This
Like,
furry's
cults-
on fire.
You should have, damn it, we should have started with that as a log line.
This
Oh, well.
furry's...
Fix it in post, of course. But no, like as you said, like you've seen a similar story like this, right?
Yeah.
So in which the cult is normally like, the obviously villainous character, like collective character, right?
Mhm.
But I think it subverts that, and I think Christian does take on the role of like just an uncaring like jerk of a boyfriend, and even like in general, like dude in general, even to his friends, eventually, especially to Josh for sure. So I think that is solid. I think he fits in that role like nicely, like it makes sense.
Mhm.
So I think if we're calling him that, I'll probably give it a 1 because it was very effective,
Yeah.
and I think Danny found a way to break free of it.
and I mean, even though it was a drug-induced cheating ritual, by the way, that was hilarious when all the women start like gathering around, like singing to her, and he's like, "What the hell is going on?" It
Yeah.
was hilarious.
I like the
was
woman that came over behind him and was pushing his butt.
Yeah, I noticed that.
But he literally has the worst walk of shame ever after that event.
Yeah.
And but like the thing is, like, he's really, for whatever sympathy he had at the beginning, you lose
It quickly
that through the
evaporates.
thing.
Yeah.
And I think that, especially for what I think the director's intent, especially from what the director said about it, he would be the villain.
Yeah.
So
No,
I'm giving it a 1.
I agree with that. I
Yeah.
like the angle, and I will give it a 1 as well.
All right, Chris, talk about our protagonist.
Danny, I don't have much to add to what you said. For at the beginning, she is going through grief, and it's just like first she doesn't know what's going on with her family. She can't get in touch with anybody, and this may go to style a little bit, but I'm going to jump just slightly ahead. Is he sets up the shot where she's leaving a message for her parents, and they pan, and you see her parents sleeping. It's revealed a few minutes later that their sister basically left both cars on the garage and tubes up to the, so everybody's dead. But she starts off in a troubled place and is just looking for a family. And the people who show her the most sympathy to her face,
Who welcome her the most and embrace her.
Yeah, Pele, who I think is genuine.
Yeah.
And Josh, because he's saying the things that Christians should say, whether or not he wants her to go, he says the things that Christians should say, behaving the way, even if he's not as emotionally invested in her. But I didn't really know where they were going with their character. I knew I knew it was either going to be her or Christian that was going to be sacrificed. And because with the Maypole Queen, like, and I'm blocking the details, but Rite of Spring, the ballet, the prima ballerina basically dances herself to death.
Mm.
So but the Maypole is the last person standing, becomes the Harvest Queen. And it was just really interesting, as as we've been saying, like watching her transition to become more and more that this is her family. And then, she had a certain, caring about Christian until he saw her, till she saw him,
In the love shack.
in the love shack. Yeah.
There's a scene before that when another couple he got killed, but they think he left first and left her behind.
Oh, that's right. And she's like, I can see you doing that to me.
Yeah, and that was the one time I think the moment she realized she started gaining that confidence to say, "I'm not the victim here. Or I'm not the person who's causing the issues. You're actually making me the victim here."
But she's the great thing about her as a protagonist, and obviously I'm giving her a 1, is because you go on this emotional journey with her. Things like that, where I can imagine, she can imagine Christian going off and doing that. The way she's acclimating, it's like there's the one supernatural thing that you said, whereas when she starts speaking, she realizes like, oh my God, I'm understanding.
But even that, as you said, it's unclear. It could just be an effect of the drug.
Could she be in her? Yeah,
I never learned to speak Swedish on mushrooms, although I never attempted.
But think of it this way: like you could think that in the midst of a drug trip. You know?
Yeah.
What I mean?
So I'm agreed. I'm like, see, it's a lot of this stuff is left, whether it's true or whether it's drug induced or whatever.
There's also a quick one too. When she becomes May Queen and she's going through the cult. And she's like, "Mom," and she sees the mother pass through that.
Yep.
But probably the part of the drug induced thing. But that's her.
Right.
Another moment where it's a slight thing of transition.
I really like the fact that she didn't see her sister as well. That was just her mom.
Yeah.
Because your mother's nurturing kind of brings you. It's a parental role. This commune is filling a parental role for her at that point.
In both the end scenes with Christian and Danny, it's the women who take charge in the society over that transition there.
Yeah.
The new birth, in a sense. Whether it's taking the seed from the man and then burning him alive later, or it's the young women making her the May Queen and bringing her into the thing. I mean, it's that motherly aspect's very true there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I agree. I don't have much more to add. Like I said, they sort of subverted. They set her up like, oh, she's like a crazy ex-girlfriend or something like that. But like, it quickly becomes apparent like it's not her. It's mostly Christian, and then definitely about a third into the film, and from then on. So yeah, I enjoyed her as a character. It all made sense, and I was maybe not as ecstatic as you were at the end, but I was like, yo, that's exactly what it should be.
Yeah. No, I was really rooting for her at the end, and that gets a 1 just on that part.
Yeah, I'm gonna say she's a strong protagonist because you do follow her emotionally throughout this film very, very, very well.
Yeah. So I'm giving it a 1 if it wasn't clear. Either.
All right. Scott, supporting characters.
Supporting. So we mentioned a bunch of them, like the little cadre, and then the commune itself. So like there's sort of like 2 groups, and it's like they have their clashes, if you will. And Josh and Mark again break some of the taboo rules that were clearly laid out to them, like pretty much. I guess Mark maybe less so. Like
I think he got it because he was disrespectful about it afterwards.
That's
He's like,
fair,
"What?
too.
Like, this is your ancestor tree? It's a dead tree.
Yeah.
Like,
True.
what do you want me to do about it? I beat on it."
He
But
said, "So what?"
again,
or something.
the reason he was there to do drugs and get laid. So I mean,
Yeah. So like, I mean, they were believable, like you said. Like, yes, it was a funny and realistic portrayal of like grad school candidates, if you will, like
Certainly is, yeah.
trying to do their thing. And I actually liked. I don't remember she was like the matronly leader, like of the commune. Like, I think she did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
And like even like some of the elders, I guess. So she was one of them. There were like 2 other dudes or men who were like teaching Josh, and like Josh goes, "Can I take pictures of that?" He's like, "No, absolutely not." Guess what? Next scene, he's trying to do it, and sorry, you have to. So I just think they were a pretty good group of people. Like, maybe not good people, if you will, but they're well portrayed, I guess I want to say.
They got Gallaghered really quickly.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, like Pele was pretty good. I think he honestly did care for Danny.
Yeah.
And like he gave her a birthday gift, like a nice portrait of her and so forth. So like I think they all rounded out very nicely. And like I said,
there was a ruin on that portrait.
Yeah, I noticed.
I wonder if that had any because it's a very spiritual community. Because they had the one girl who was trying to seduce Christian through the ruin.
Maya, I believe her name was. Yeah.
So I wonder if that had anything to do with it. But
no,
it doesn't matter here or there.
I did notice that though. It was a very excellent detail to include. So yeah, like I'm gonna give them credit. They did a solid job. I believe I bought into all their characterizations, whether they're being douchey or not, and just their friendship, and then the transition and/or the split from when they are facing the consequences of breaking the rules of the place they're visiting.
So I'm going to nitpick here because I think this is perhaps, of all of the things, the weakest thing. The London couple really didn't add much to the
I will agree with
narrative, aside from bodies to kill, in a sense, or to add more to the mystery of what's going on.
Well, I was going to say the big purpose they served is that they, Ingmar which I thought was a great touch.
Pele's brother, yes.
Pele's brother only brought 2 people instead of 4. So it's kind of like, yeah, they were fall people. They were basically like, hi, you've got targets on your foreheads. But I think that to me, they became relevant.
There was like
only
tertiary
insofar as then, and to show you the how much this plays into the community's culture is that Ingmar and his friend willingly walked in to be sacrificed alive.
Yes.
And even though they said, here, take this poison, it'll stop the pain,
you see it doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't stop the pain. But the thing is, they were there. To me, their presence was worth it just to have
give motivation for Ingmar for the later parts.
Yeah, because I think that then says a lot about the community.
Yes.
I guess I'll say like they are like the British couple, almost like tertiary, like you said, like they're just there to be sacrificial lambs, pretty much. So like while they didn't add all that much, their presence like rounded out the events, like what was happening.
While Mark did have good lines in there, and actually everyone in the audience, few people that were there with us, a lot of people laughed at
Chuckled at his stuff.
Yeah, and actually guffawed at some of his lines. I think that the 2 best supporting characters of the American groups was Josh, who had the most kind of building, and I guess Christian, since he was the antagonist,
and Pele, I would say,
and Pele, and actually, Pele was a very likable character.
Yeah, he was extremely likable.
It was also nice of Virgin because you thought like he might be like the villain. Like, yes, he brought them to the cult, but he had like within the context of it, he had good intentions and honestly did care for Danny, as I mentioned. So yeah,
they're gonna have nice children one day.
Yeah, they this might be like the weakest one, but I'm still giving it a 1.
Oh, yeah, I just say that if I have anywhere to nitpick, this is it.
Yeah, I get
you. Yeah, I was gonna say the weaker characters were plot devices, but that's okay because the end result of that to me was strong enough to warrant.
And the commune itself as a whole,
collectively, for sure,
definitely worth a 1. All right, on to me with dialogue. I thought this was fantastic at times, good for the majority of it. We already mentioned the part when they start speaking Swedish in there, but overall, like they handle the tone that they want to set very well. Whether it's comedic at points, whether it's sinister at points, and I don't know how much this is based on any real world cultures out there, or based on actual the kind of, I guess, the Viking folklore or whatever. But I thought it handled everything like. I don't know, it felt very like a fleshed out world, and even though I wasn't privy to all the secrets, I got enough information to understand what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, it was good to great, I'll say. Like, for the most part, good. Certainly more than serviceable, which is what I usually say about dialogue. And, like, again, I may be overusing this, but it was organic and believable as well, for sure. I believe this group of friends, and I believe their interactions when they are introduced to the commune as a whole. And I believe, especially, like, when Danny starts getting, like I said, invited to participating in the activities just by herself and acclimating and so forth, those scenes were quite good, and what the exchanges they had there dialogue-wise. So, yeah, pretty damn solid 1. I can't pick out any lines, but, like, it all flowed together, like you said, very nicely.
Yeah.
The dialogue was very natural and appropriate. I don't really have much to add. I thought, it's definitely getting a 1 from me.
I also like that they picked, they chose very well when to add subtitles and when not to.
Actually, that's a good point. So we'll give it extra credit on that for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, Chris, on to lucky you, on to style.
Okay, I wasn't sure where to begin, but I do know where to begin now because it's going to tie into my wondering about the Wicker Man ending. But I realized that the ships, I don't really know much about design, so anybody who does could, hopefully if you're listening to this, write bullshit or whatever. But I noticed the buildings had a certain slant to them. And it occurred to me when you said Viking funeral, you set things on fire. But a lot of the buildings, the main ones, the breeding house and the smokehouse, whatever, I mean, were they to invoke the images of ships?
I think
evoke, yeah. So I was very fascinated. More and more, I just want to watch this movie now just to see all these little things. But stylistically, I think this director is probably one of the great visionaries, because he can really set up a shot. As I mean, I said before, and that I could take almost any shot in this film and take it as a still and just look at it. But things like there's an awesome transition where Danny's running into the bathroom in the apartment, and he's really big on overhead shots and
sweeping shots,
large
scope shots, I guess I want to say,
where you go from one room to another room. And this one was she closes the door and seamlessly she's in the bathroom in an airplane. Little stuff like that. The sound design was incredible.
Yes.
The use of color, the yellow
costumes.
I was getting there.
Sorry.
The yellow smokehouse. I keep calling it the sacrificial house.
I like that though. Keep calling it that.
Which also is in a triangle, which again evokes the bow of a ship. Is against the mountains is just really very, very striking. The movie's just like incredibly well shot. I mean, I can sit here and go over detail by detail all the stuff I like, but I'm going to say one thing, and I don't know, I hope I'm not jumping in on you, is Ari
Aster.
Obviously, you did shrooms as well, because thank you very much for the realistic depiction of what it's like to actually do mushrooms.
Yeah, I was thoroughly impressed, and not only that, and then you get the slow build up. It was really like I'm watching the screen, and all of a sudden I see a flower, and that's like, is it like moving? Is it pulsing? I'm like, it is. And then it goes away. I'm like, did I make that up? Then it happens like again later. And it's like, oh,
it's subtle.
And I'm watching it's
in the slightly more intense colors and the way the bark kind of moves, and it's nothing major. It's just subtle. Like the colors become a little more vivid,
almost like a real trip.
Yeah, just it's like it's like doing mushrooms or something.
Sure. No, I mean, I agree. Yes. His style is very impressive. In fact, I was probably more impressed with this one than Hereditary, which is itself was pretty damn good. And just, like you said, rich, vibrant, lush colors, and like the shots, the framework was fucking amazing. And and the soundtrack, the sound design added a hell of a lot to all that. So like, you really can't say enough. Probably the strongest one. And he, like you said, he's probably one of the better modern filmmakers that I'm interested in seeing what he does with film.
Soundtrack, not just sound design, but the sound design was. So there's this one scene where there's chanting, and we're in the movie theater, and you hear it in, I think, the back right corner speaker starts. And I believe, Chris, you mentioned that you thought someone was talking behind us.
Yeah, and I
actually
actually
looked behind us.
starts
Sweeping across, the room is filled with the chant. Amazing. But Hereditary was also with the sound, and they would have it like happen in the back of the theater. That was great. But the iconography in this, as both a storytelling device, he telegraphs every single thing that's going to happen in this film through either murals or frescoes or so even like they had a linen with a tapestry on it, and so you got all that work. And when he's in the smokehouse, the hay that they're going to burn it down with is set as a ruin. On the ground, and like everything there is like. The attention that he put into making this film and all the details is like flabbergasting.
And I loved when she's in that gown, that bell gown made of flowers, cool. where she's kind of freaking out before she gets the acceptance. Watching her drag herself standing in front of this burning thing, just with the vibrant flowers against the burning yellow building against the mountains, was incredible.
I meant to bring this up in themes. I'm going to do it here. When she's tripping, twice you see her have
like roots,
grass growing on her, and that is her establishing her roots in this community. And it's a more vibrant the second time around. And then she's in the full flower dress, almost being dragged to the ground. Now fully part of this
fully
community.
planted. Yeah. I will mention one. I mean, amongst many, the pole scene, the pole dancing scene, like where they're all holding hands and it's overhead shot, and like they're arranged in like a runic-ish pattern, and like they're just swaying and dancing to music. That was fucking fantastic, and like this whole film is composed of shots and scenes just like that, just as impressive as that.
And this soundtrack, the score wise, I like the way it just built throughout the thing, because I really didn't notice it all that much until the end. where you really do have the full orchestra or whatever they do just kind of come in. But again, you're so overstimulated by everything else. Like, I want to see it just for the music at the end.
Yes. That's absolutely true.
Yeah, for sure. It all combines to create an incredible effect and masterful use of cinematography.
All right. Scott, wind this discussion up with your recommendation.
Hell yeah. Like I said, one of my new standards has become, would I see this movie again, especially in theaters? Yes, I would. I do recommend it. Now, you might say it's not for everybody, but I would say just for the visuals alone, as we just talked about for like 5-10 minutes, it's impressive and a great narrative. And I'm super excited to see whatever Ari Aster does next, because he makes great films, especially in a subgenre that I very much enjoy. And I absolutely would recommend Midsommar. And I meant to mention this just before, actually. So it was almost like he dared himself to make a horror-ish movie, if you will, like with broad daylight, like no hardly any shadows, like hardly any cheap tricks, anything like that, no jump scares. So yeah, I absolutely would recommend this film. I think he's quickly cementing himself as a new modern master of like thriller, horror, suspense.
No, I think he's just a master filmmaker. To me, as I said to these guys before, it kind of is like The Wicker Man meets going to your buddy's girlfriend's family reunion where half of the family doesn't speak English, because he puts you in these uncomfortable places. And I had a very visceral reaction to Hereditary, but I've not been able to let Hereditary go. Because he put me in a place I didn't want to be. He put me in a place of grief. I didn't want to be there. I wasn't enjoying it. It was not pleasant. When I went back and thought about it, looked at it intellectually, I really appreciate Hereditary. You know, I liked this film, and I wasn't sure if I was going to give it 2 on the plot because of the ending. And the more we talked about the Viking funeral and that just ritual in general, okay, Wicker Man wasn't the first. This won't be the last, you know. But for recommendation, I was trying to figure out who would recommend it to. And I'm just going to say this. He puts me in a very uncomfortable position again. And it's not just you're in an uncomfortable situation. It's a visceral situation.
Yep, sure. From
the soundtrack. Go see it in the movie theater, because it is not a comfortable film, but it is worth the experience. It is a very well developed sensory experience. I was not comfortable at all. I felt like a fish out of water, and I just didn't feel like I belonged.
As you're supposed to.
You're supposed to, though. But to me, now even Hereditary makes more sense. Even though I like this more, you could definitely see his growth as a filmmaker between the two.
Well, Hereditary was attempting to do, like, it had a downer ending to it. Where this one actually, I think, has a triumphant ending to it, even though it's maybe morally questionable if it should be or not. But the thing is, it's acceptance as a measure for grief. It's finding a different family to replace, finding something new to replace what you've lost, and accepting and not going to something that is toxic to find to replace what you lost. No, it's finding people who actually want you there, who care for you and bring you into the film.
Yeah, for sure. I would say, don't do this, but I wonder what it would be like watching this film while you're tripping, because that would be a trip into itself.
No.
But I'm not sure if it would be a good experience.
No.
So
just want to throw that out. Go ahead.
The thing is, I love this because I'm not a huge fan of like jump scares or the use of loud noises to signal when you should be scared in a film. And I was expecting jump scares to happen. I was very nervous about certain scenes when it's set up to scare you, and it does happen. Occasionally, there's quick cuts to a loud situation,
right? But it's not a jump scare.
It's
at all.
disconcerting. No. It's not. So I don't necessarily consider this a horror movie in the sense of what we've come to expect horror movies for. It reminds me more like a 70s style horror film, which is deliberate and trying to make you question your reality and making you uncomfortable
and morality.
Yes, and I would go in saying, if you don't like horror, you might enjoy this. If you don't like modern horror, you might enjoy this because it's a different.
That's true. It's not strictly that, for sure. You're right. I mean, I agree with that. Mm-hmm. So I'm definitely recommend it, though. I think it's worth seeing, especially an experience, as you said, in theaters.
Oh, it definitely should be seen in theaters. Unless you have a good speaker system on your
or a sick home setup. Yeah, I guess we'll say
sick home setup and watch it without all the light. And now I say this with all the lights off, just so you can get the full impact of the vividness of the colors.
Yeah, man. Oh yeah, for sure.
It's a really strong movie. It is definitely where Yeah, I would, much like The Wicker Man, I didn't consider The Wicker Man a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't even consider the remake of Suspiria a horror movie, so to speak.
They both had people in bear costumes.
That's
the one running thing that's linked between them.
And they both, yes.
The bees, not the bees.
No, not
like
that.
literally, literally not the bees because there are no bees.
No, Britt Eklund,
All right.
Christopher Lee,
I
Edward
know.
Woodward. No.
All right. Well, given all that,
All right, a 10 all around.
Yes.
And I came out of this movie adoring it. I actually want to go see it in theaters again because now that I don't have to anticipate what's going to happen, I can appreciate what is happening.
and
And
maybe
there's so
discover
much
more
detail
details.
in this.
Yeah.
It's
Now, I don't know if I would say it's a perfect movie, perfect 10 movie. I'm giving a 10 on our scale, yes, but it's a very
10 horror movie.
It's a damn fucking strong movie, and like I said, like we all just talked out, it's something to be seen and appreciated for what it is as a piece of art.
Mm-hmm.
I saw If Beale Street Could Talk and the remake of Suspiria, which were my number 1 and 2 favorite films of 2018,
last year,
respectively. So, but in terms of things I saw in the theater that were released this year, and we're talking some really good, some good stuff that I've seen so far. This is probably my favorite film of the year.
Fair enough.
So far,
Yeah,
so far, this would be, if you said what's my number 1 pick of 2019, this would be it.
It'd be in my top 3, not number 1, but it'd be up there. So that's all. That's my endorsement.
I was again. We were comparing it to Kubrick,
I did say Kubrick-esque, I believe, or one of us did after
and
the
that
film.
is
And if
an
you say
honor
that,
on its
yeah,
own.
exactly, speaks for itself.
But the thing is, this is like I said, Kubrick, Bergman.
Yeah.
Jarmusch does a lot with color. It's like we haven't seen.
he does a lot with Bill Murray.
No. Yeah.
Sure.
No, but there's other things of his that he does well with color. But my whole point is, what makes a filmmaker great aren't the big things; it's the little things, the attention to detail with regard to color. There can be a perfect moment in just one word, and Ari Aster is well on his way of joining the ranks of these guys.
Yes.
I agree.
Okay.
Not much more to add. There it is.
No.
I'm Jonathan E. Manzer here with Chris Morgan
Good night.
and Scott Thurlow.
Gonna go dance around the maypole. See you next time.
Editing and engineering by Stephen Hermosi. Music by Christopher Morgan. Check us out on YouTube and iTunes for the shows, and on Facebook and Twitter for updates. Or Mott's?